So it's time for you to break your fast. Instead of just eating whatever and gorging on maybe a big giant meal, I'm going to tell you the best foods to opt for to break a fast. And if you stay to the end of this video, I'm also going to give you an awesome cortisol reducing protocol. The number one cardinal rule when breaking a fast is do not combine fats and carbohydrates together. Now, if you do a ketogenic diet, you're not really going to have to worry about this anyways because you already don't really consume much carbs. Either though, you don't want to break it with just fat, and I'll get to that here soon. But when you combine carbohydrates and fats together, carbs already cause a big insulin spike. But when you combine them with fats, they're going to cause a massive insulin spike. That insulin is going to make your cells wide open to receive whatever is going through your bloodstream. So all that fat is going to go straight into storage, and that's going to kind of defeat the purpose of why most people fast, which is weight loss, along with some other things like autophagy. You're also going to want to keep vegetables and herbs and other things like that out of the equation when breaking a fast. Now, I'll go more in depth on that in next week's video, so keep an eye out for that. Before I go into the foods, let's take a look at two good liquid options, and those are going to be bone broth or a pea protein shake. The reason for bone broth is it is lean protein and there's no fat, and it's collagen protein. And that's going to be really easy on the gut and not hard on it and easy to digest. The reason for a pea protein shake over a whey protein shake is whey protein, when breaking a fast, is going to be hard on the gut's mucosal layer and can be very inflammatory. And that's kind of defeating the purpose of fasting because one of the benefits is decreased inflammation. As far as bone broth goes, my personal favorite is Cattle on Fire, and I'll have a link in the description if you want to check them out. The foods that you're going to want to opt for when breaking a fast are going to be lean proteins, and I'm going to be talking specifically about meats. So if you're vegan, the pea protein option is going to be your best way to go. The meats that you're going to want to focus on are going to be meats that are high in phosphorus and B1. At the end of a fast, you're typically depleted of a lot of minerals like potassium, magnesium, and B1. But having a good amount of phosphorus and B1 coming in when you're breaking the fast is going to help out a lot, because if you don't, without those present, there can be a potentially dangerous fluid shift in and out of the cells that can happen. So going over the meats, I'm going to start with the worst options and then go all the way up to the best option. But starting out with beef. Beef is typically something that you're not going to want to break your fast with. You want to wait till your second meal to have that, or your actual first normal size meal. And the reason for that is beef is typically higher in saturated fat. And at the end of a fast, that's going to be harder for your body to break down. Now we're going to move on to the stuff that's going to be a lot better, and it's going to be higher in the phosphorus and B1 that I was talking about. And that's going to be chicken, pork, and turkey. Obviously, for these, you want to try to get them from a clean source, stuff that's in the realm of, pasture raised and grass fed stuff, because turkey, out of all of them, can be the dirtiest. There's a lot of antibiotic concerns, and that also goes for the chicken and pork. So just make sure you're getting them from a clean source. And as I said, you want to make sure that you're getting lean cuts. So with chicken, you want to opt for like the chicken breast instead of the thigh or the leg or the wing. And as far as pork goes, you can find a leaner cut of pork. And then turkey is typically going to be just like chicken. You want to go for the breast and not the wing or the thigh or the leg. The next step up is going to be seafood and shellfish. And make sure you're getting that wild caught, not farm raised, because the stuff that they feed the farm raised seafood and shellfish are just absolutely awful. But I'm not going to go into that. That's for a whole nother video. But the absolute best thing that you can get is going to be sockeye salmon. And you want to get sockeye salmon that, once again, is wild caught, but also has a deep red color to it, and it's not marbled with a bunch of fat. Like I said, we're going for lean proteins. But typically with fish, you would want a higher amount of fat because that fat is going to be really rich in omega-3s. But at the end of a fast, breaking a fast, that's something that you don't want right off the bat. If you've stayed all the way to this point in the video, that's great, because the information I'm about to give on the cortisol reducing protocol that I have is going to be absolutely great for reducing your stress before breaking a fast. Because you may or may have not heard before, it's not good to eat when you're stressed. And that's very true, because it can inhibit digestion to a certain degree. And that's the last thing that you want when you're breaking a fast. So the first thing is going to be adding 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt to your water. The reason for that is because when you're lower in sodium, what's going to happen is you're going to have what's called aldosterone elevated. When aldosterone is elevated, your cortisol is also going to be elevated with it. Taking in some good quality salt is going to lower those aldosterone levels, which in turn is going to lower your cortisol levels. Now, I know not everybody can handle adding salt to their water, so you could try doing maybe salt shots if that's easier, instead of drinking a whole thing worth of water with salt in it. Or if you look around online, I have seen companies that'll actually make salt capsules. So all you have to do is just take 2 or 3 capsules and you can get a good decent amount of salt in. The second one is going to be cinnamon. Now, I know that may seem kind of odd to some of you, but if you don't know, one thing that cinnamon does is it mimics insulin. It helps excess blood sugar get into the cells. But also on top of that, it actually has a cortisol reducing effect also. Now, I don't have any little tricks for getting cinnamon in before breaking a fast, except maybe adding some to black coffee. I've actually done that before. You could add, say, maybe 1/8 a teaspoon to some coffee and get it in that way before you break your fast. The third one is going to be magnesium, and to some of you that may sound generic, but according to a conclusion from a study that I'll have linked in the description, magnesium helps calm the nervous system down by restricting the release of cortisol and acting as a filter to prevent cortisol from entering the brain. I understand that some of y'all may not be able to do all 3 of those, but if you can even do just one of them, it's still going to have at least some cortisol and stress reducing effect before you go to break your fast. If you have any questions or things that you think I should have mentioned, leave them in the comments and I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Keep it keto, keep it healthy, and I'll see y'all in next week's video on the foods to not break a fast with. I'll see y'all then.